it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a cute little case for your fidget spinner. If you're not sure what a fidget spinner is, you're not alone. I had no idea what they were either until just a few weeks ago. And being a mom, you know, you have these toys that come along every so often and kids just go crazy about them. Let me show you what it is in case you're not sure, or you may have heard of them but weren't sure really what it was. This is a little toy that kids like to play with. It has a spinny part in the middle and weights along the edge, and what they do is they spin it and do the tricks with them and things like that, and they're really popular. And they also are really heavy, and when they get dropped, you know, they could possibly put a little ding on your floor, something like that. So I thought it would be really fun to make a case in bright yarn with a fun button. I found these monster buttons at the fabric store, and they came in like a pack. So I thought that would be really cute to just take some simple yarn scraps that you might have laying around and make a little case for it. So here is, you just slip it in. It's 2 solid granny triangles, which I'm going to show you how to make. This took me probably 20 minutes to make this case. And then you can just slip it in there, and it's nice and cushioned and protected. And then we put a fun button on the front and just a simple little loop made out of a chain, and just button it close. And it's nice and safe. It's in a fun case, and if it gets dropped, it's not going to damage anything. Okay, now the finished case measures about 4.5 inches across the widest points. Now, fidget spinners come in lots of different styles and shapes and things. This is just kind of a standard one, and I made the case for that. So if yours is a little bit bigger, you can add more rounds to your triangles, or if yours is a little one, they make little ones too, you can just do 1 round. And it just tucks in there very nicely and buttons closed, and it's just a fun little project to make for your kids. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a 5.5mm eye crochet hook. You'll need a tapestry needle. Now I have 2 here just because we're going to be working with buttons, and you might need one a little bit smaller. So I grabbed a couple different sizes. You'll need a pair of scissors. A ruler is helpful to get it sized correctly. It helps too if you have the actual fidget spinner, but if not, this is just one of the regular ones. Now they make all different shapes and things, but this one is about 2 3/4 of an inch wide at its widest points, just to give you an idea. But if you actually have your fidget spinner, it helps to be able to slip it into the case to make sure it's the proper size. And your yarn. I'm going to be using a worsted weight acrylic yarn. This is Red Heart Super Saver. Now you'll only need 1 color unless you want to make the front 1 color and the back another color. I'm going to make mine 1 color, but I just grabbed a few colors to show you. This is the spring green and the shocking pink. There's a ton of colors. I've done many projects with this yarn, and this is a good yarn to use for this because it's going to essentially have a toy in it, so it'll be used by kids. This is a sturdy, hardworking yarn to use for that. And you'll also need some buttons. Now, a large button is helpful. It's lots of fun. I found these they're plastic monster buttons. If you go to your fabric store, you can find all kinds of really cute buttons to use for this. Or if you have some laying around, this is a great project to use kind of those odds and ends. But you'll only need 1 for this. Okay, so to begin, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. So to make a slip knot, wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, you're going to chain 6. To make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, in the chain farthest from our hook, this is the first chain we made, we're going to join with a slip stitch, and that will create a ring that we'll be working our stitches into. If you prefer the magic ring, I get this question a lot, definitely feel free to do that as an alternative if you prefer that technique instead. So insert the hook into that chain farthest from the hook, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, you'll have 2 loops on your hook. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and then you can kind of open up the ring a little bit. Now as we work our first round, I'm going to hold this yarn tail along the edge, and that will weave it in as we go along. Okay? So for round 1, what we're going to do is chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we're going to work 5 double crochet into the center of the ring. Okay, so to make a double crochet, let me just scoot this over. Wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Okay, so that's 1 double crochet, but we need 5 of them. So 1, and this is 2, and 3, 4, and 5. Okay? If you need to slide things over a bit, we're going to be putting some more stitches into this ring, so just kind of slide things over if need be. Then we're going to make a chain 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're establishing the corners of our triangle. Then we're going to work 5 more double crochet. So 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5. So see, we have a corner of our triangle already, and then slide things over if you need to. Then we're going to chain 5 once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let me just grab a little bit more yarn here. And then we're going to work 4 double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, I'm going to slide things over a little bit, 3, and 4. Notice I'm also still holding that tail along the edge, and if we flip it over, see how it has woven it in. It's kind of traveling along the edge there. Okay, then we need to join. So we're going to count 3 chains up. 1, 2, 3. The first 3 chains of the starting chain counted as one of our double crochets. So insert the hook into that 3rd chain up. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. Okay? So what we can do is take this tail and pull it really, really snug and grab our scissors and just trim that tail off to kind of get it out of the way. Okay, now let's flip it back over. Now we have a triangle. Okay, this is our first round, so it's gonna shape up a little bit more, but we do have a basic triangle shape to get us started. Okay, so let's move on to round 2. Okay, so round 2 is the final round. There's only 2 rounds of this triangle, and we'll be making 2 of them. But if we hold up our fidget spinner, you can see we're almost there. We just need 1 more round to get it up to size. You don't want it to be a really tight fit. You don't want to have to shove it in there. You want it to have a little bit of wiggle room, okay? So what we're going to do for round 2 is, if you're sticking with the same color, we need to slip stitch over to this first corner space. If you're switching colors, you can cut the yarn and fasten off and simply tie the new yarn into the corner space. But we're going to stick with the green. We're going to make this a solid triangle. Okay, so I'm not quite where I need to be. See, I'm still in that stitch, so I need to be in this space in order to begin round 2. So simply just insert the hook into that corner space, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and now we're in the corner space where we are where we need to be for that round. Okay? So for round 2, we're going to chain 8 once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now in the same corner space, we're going to work 2 double crochet. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to work a double crochet. Let me get a little bit more yarn. We're going to kind of switch things up a little bit. We've been working into spaces so far, but on these side stitches here, we're going to work into these stitches. So if you look at the stitch, each of these posts has a little loop at the top of it. See how each one of those has a little tiny loop? We're going to work into those stitches. So work a double crochet in each stitch until you get to the corner space again over here. So we're just going to work a double crochet into each stitch. Okay, so let's go all along here, just work a double crochet in each stitch, just like that. Okay, now we're at the next corner space, So how we're going to deal with that is we're going to work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get that corner, and then 2 more double crochet, 1 and 2. Okay, now you can see how we've made another corner. Okay, let me just grab a little bit more yarn. Okay, now we're at the sides again, so we're going to be working into the stitches. So work a double crochet in each side stitch. Okay, so this pattern, if you are unfamiliar with working into the spaces and working into the stitches, this is a wonderful pattern to practice that concept. Okay, so we're just working into the side stitches, and then we're at another corner space. So just do the same thing we did for the other corner. Work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 2 more double crochet in that same corner space. 1 and 2. So you can see our triangle is really shaping up, and it's really mimicking the shape of our fidget spinner. And the other thing that's great about this is we have just a little bit of room along the edge, so it's not a tight fit. It's just the right fit. So if you use the Super Saver yarn and the eye hook, now we all have different tension, so yours might vary slightly, but it's going to give you a little bit of wiggle room to hold that in there. Okay, so then what we want to do is work the next side. Okay, so we're going to work a double crochet into each side stitch. So just come right down the side here. And we're just going to work a double crochet into each one of these stitches along the side. And then our last double crochet is right there. Okay, now we're going to finish up the round and work that last, remember our chain 8 at the beginning of the round, we're going to finish that round up. So to finish it off, all you want to do in this corner space is work a double crochet, and then you're going to count 3 chains up like we did before, 1, 2, 3, and insert your hook, and we're going to work a slip stitch to close the round in that 3rd chain up. Okay, so insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. So our triangle is complete. So you can see when you use the case, your little fidget spinner will be kind of peeking out a little bit. Okay, so what we want to do now is cut the yarn and fasten off. And then I'm going to go ahead and make another one. And then we'll rejoin in just a moment. So our little triangle looks very cute, and it's plenty of room to hold our fidget spinner in place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make another triangle, and then we're going to rejoin, and I'm going to show you how to seam this up. Okay, so I went ahead and made another triangle, and what I want to do now is let's get all of the ends woven in. So I'm pulled that center one tight and trimmed it. Now notice I didn't cut the yarn yet to fasten off. We're going to leave this triangle on the hook because we're just going to use this yarn here to continue and seam it. Okay, now we already trimmed this end, but you'll have one more end. So grab a tapestry needle and just weave that end in really quick. So this was the side that faced you. This is the right side of the triangle, or the public side. You want to flip it over to the back. See how it looks a little bit different. And then go ahead and take your tapestry needle and weave into the backs of these stitches, the back loops of these stitches. Go in one direction, come back in the other direction, and that'll just get that tail out of the way, and we don't have to worry about it later. Okay, so once that tail is woven in, just kind of straighten things out if need be. Trim that tail. And then what we're going to do is get our triangles lined up. So remember I mentioned there's a front side or a public side, or it's also called the right side. And then the back is called the wrong side, or the back side, or whatever. Now, I already slip stitched into that corner space, and what we're going to do is sandwich our triangles together. Now, you want to sandwich them in such a way that they line up, obviously, but you want the right side or the public side to be facing outward on both sides, because that's the side we're going to see when we seam this up, okay? We're going to use a single crochet seam to work this. So what you want to do is insert your hook into the corner spaces of both layers, bring up a loop, and then what we're going to do is wrap yarn around hook and bring it through both loops, okay? So we essentially worked a single crochet there. So let's work 3 more. 1, 2, and 3, okay? Next, we're going to go into both layers along these stitches here. So go in the stitch you come to of the first layer, and then go into that bottom layer, wrap yarn around hook, bring the yarn up through both layers, wrap yarn around hook, bring through both loops, okay? Let's do this for each stitch all the way across our case. We're just working a single crochet seam into both layers of our fidget spinner case. Okay, I'm just pulling some yarn out here, and we're going to go into both layers with the hook. Now make sure when you go into each layer, see how I have 2 loops from that first layer and 2 loops from the next layer. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both layers, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? That's giving us a nice, neat seam. Okay, I'm just going to continue this all the way around until we get to our corner space that we're about to come to up at the end here. Okay, so just go in both layers with that single crochet seam. I like to go into each layer separately so I can see exactly what I'm doing when I go into each layer. Okay, we just got a couple more stitches left. Going into that last layer. Okay, now we're at the corner space again. So what we want to do is work 4 single crochets into that corner space. Same thing we did before. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, next we're going to work into the stitches along this side, and then we're going to work this corner, but we're going to leave the top part open. And I'm going to show you how to make a nice little loop to help button your case together. Okay, so let's seam up the sides here. Go into the first stitch of each layer and work your single crochet seam. Okay, so we're going to go into one layer, go into the bottom layer, and if you keep this lined up as you go along, then everything will look nice and neat. If you're off by a stitch, you can always pull a little bit of yarn up and back up a little bit if it's not lining up properly, and usually you can see where, maybe you put 2 stitches into 1 stitch, or you skipped over one or something like that. Okay, so I'm just working that single crochet seam into both layers of our case. This is also nice to have because if your child or grandchild or niece or nephew has one of these things, you'll know that they're really super heavy for being so small. So it'll not only protect it, but if it falls or something like that or gets dropped, it'll give it a little bit of cushion. Okay, so we are back at this corner space. We've worked, actually I have one more left, so let me just go ahead and work into that last stitch. There we go. Okay, now we're at the last space. Once again, we're going to work 4 single crochet stitches into that corner space, just like that, okay? Now, the last thing, because this is nice and rounded over here, this looks a little bit geometric. So to finish it off, just also in that corner space, work a slip stitch. So insert the hook into the corner space, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop on your hook, and then this first stitch you come to, work a slip stitch into there just to finish off the round, okay? So now what we can do is cut the yarn and fasten it off and you can kind of straighten things out a little bit. And as you can see, it's a great size for our fidget spinner. Now, before we move ahead, let's take this end right here and just weave it in very quickly. You'll also, like we did before, just open it up a little bit and weave it along the inside of the case. So I'm just opening it up. I'm just going to go along those back loops of these stitches. So just get it woven in. Just like that. And then we can trim that yarn tail. Okay, so let's try it out and see how it fits. Now it fits very nicely. It's a nice little case for our fidget spinner. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our button. We're going to put a button. Now you can do whatever button you like. I kind of like this orange one. Okay, so you can put a button right in the center, or you can put it at the top. You know, I kind of like it here because it's centered. And then what we're going to do is grab our yarn. Now decide where you want your front to be. I think I'm going to make my front here, and where you want the back to be, because we're going to attach the yarn along the back. So open it up a little bit and locate the center, the centermost stitch. Insert your hook into that stitch, and we're going to grab the yarn and bring the yarn through and just tie it right on. Okay? We'll worry about the tail in just a moment. Okay. Now reinsert your hook back into that stitch, bring up a loop. Now this is the part where you'll have to kind of measure based on your own button. So we need our loop to come up, down around the button, and back up, okay? So we might need to experiment a little bit. So make a few chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so let's see if that, now your button might be smaller or even larger than this button, so just see if you need, so if I bring my loop down, I'm about a little bit more than halfway. So let's add 8 more chains. So that's 18 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's try. Well, we haven't sewn our button on, so we're just kind of experimenting here. Okay, so that seems to do the trick. So what I'm going to do is cut the yarn, fasten that off. And then what we want to do is, now a lot of buttons at the craft store or the fabric store are designed to be sewn on with needle and thread, but I always use a matching piece of yarn. So you might need to grab a smaller tapestry needle and just make sure that needle can pass through the hole of your button, okay? Now mine happens to be on the back, but do a little test run first. All right, so we have our loop and we have our button. So position your button how you'd like it to be, and then cut a piece of yarn, I would say about 8 inches or so, and thread it with your tapestry needle. And then wherever you'd like your button to be, I'm going to turn this little pouch inside out a little bit. Wherever you'd like the button to be, go ahead and sew it on. Okay, so I'm going to go in and then back up. It's a little bit snug, but that's okay. This is a large button, so it's forgiving. And then I'm just going to do that one more time. Make sure you go into the button and the layers, and then just pull that really snug. Now this is the inside of the pouch, so you don't necessarily have to weave it in nice and pretty. It's going to be on the inside. So I'm just going to trim these tails because you're not really going to see those. Then we can turn our case back out. And our button is attached, and that's such a cute little fun button. These came in a bag. There was a whole bunch of them at the craft store, and it was all different monsters and different colors. Okay, so I just have a few more tails to weave in. And you can also, when you make yours, experiment with variegated yarns and striped yarns, and you can use multicolors. This is a great way to use up some scraps as well. Okay, so our loop, now we're looking down into the top of the bag. We're going to bring it up and over like that to create a loop, okay? So thread your tapestry needle with the tail. We didn't weave that tail in, so thread with the tail from our chain, and then we're just going to go down to the base of our chain, and we're just going to add a few stitches just to get it nice and secure. And you want this to be, like I said, secure, because this is going to be used by a child for a toy. So you want it to be able to be nice and sturdy and hold up to whatever it, let me just go through this back loop, whatever tests are put on it, so it's able to withstand being tossed around and what have you. Okay, whoops, I pulled my needle out a little bit too soon. Let's put that back on there. All right, so the last pass you make with that stitch, you want to leave yourself a loop, okay? So don't pull it all the way through, and then leave yourself a little loop, and then you can just kind of like knot it right on there, okay? All right, so our button loop is complete. We have a little button on there. Now let's just test it and make sure. Now chains are pretty stretchy, so it's pretty forgiving. So it buttons closed, and it'll be nice and safe, okay? So let's test it out. We'll put our fidget spinner inside. Even with, you know, all these high-tech toys, you can still put a little handmade touch on just about everything. So put your fidget spinner inside, and you can just button it closed, and you have this fun little button, and it looks so cute, and it's going to protect it from, you know, if it falls on your floor or something, give it a little bit of cushion. Okay, so that is how you make a fun little case for your fidget spinner. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.